Hi, my name is Jessica Gregory, and welcome to my EcoBuzz, where the theme is exploring ways to care for the resources we share, regardless of our politics, position, or place.
In this series, we're going to talk about carbon. Carbon is the building block of life. It's in our air, it's in our soil, and it comprises the molecules that make up every living thing on Earth. But carbon has a cost, as most things do, a rather large one as it turns out. And that cost is not just an economic one, but extends to our natural resources and even to human health.
But let's start by taking a closer look at carbon itself. Just what is it exactly, and why is it such a critical component to all life on our planet?
In its most basic form, carbon is an atom, a tiny particle that combines with other tiny particles to form molecules, which combine to form tissues, which combine to form the components of living organisms. Now, lots of other elements do the same thing, but what's special about carbon is that at the molecular level, each atom of carbon can bond with up to 4 other atoms or combinations of atoms, sometimes forming large chains. And so, the types of compounds that result are truly complex, wildly diverse, and store lots of energy. Carbon is also available in small quantities in our atmosphere. It's absorbed by plants and other photosynthetic organisms that can harness its energy by building it into sugars. Then it's exhaled back into the air by humans and other organisms through respiration, after extracting the stored energy from those sugars. Thus, carbon exists in and flows through organisms and natural systems in a cyclical process known as the carbon cycle. In the carbon cycle, carbon is transferred between a variety of sites that either produce carbon, called sources, or sequester carbon, known as sinks. The majority of carbon is stored in sediments and rock via fossils and fossil fuels, which of course are remnants of living things from bygone days. The oceans are the second largest carbon reservoirs, storing some carbon through photosynthetic organisms, but mainly as dissolved organic carbon within the water itself. Forests and other vegetation around the globe can also store enormous amounts of carbon through photosynthesis. Carbon is released naturally through the respiration, excretion, and decomposition of living organisms. Geologic processes like erosion or volcanic activity can also release carbon at varying rates into the air. And finally, there is an exchange of carbon that occurs between the surface of the ocean and the air, but very little of the ocean's carbon actually moves into the atmosphere. Atmospheric carbon, which exists as CO2 or carbon dioxide, is therefore impacted mainly by organisms and processes anchored in terrestrial areas around the world. That means that carbon dioxide in the air is impacted mostly by living things on land.
Human activities like industry, transportation, and agriculture also impact the global carbon cycle by adding carbon dioxide into the atmosphere.
Imbalances to the carbon cycle can have costly consequences to the resources we share, as we'll see in the next couple of episodes.
Stay tuned, but in the meantime, get outdoors and find ways to enjoy the carbon in the nature around you. Until next time, happy naturing.